Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most intriguing and mysterious figures in the New Testament. Joseph of Arimathea. You've probably heard his name, especially around Easter. But who exactly was he? Why did he suddenly appear at one of the most critical moments in history, only to vanish from the narrative just as quickly? Let's uncover the story of the man who buried Jesus. So, who was this guy? The Gospels give us a few key details. Matthew's Gospel describes him as a rich man and a disciple of Jesus. Mark tells us he was a prominent member of the council, which means he was part of the Sanhedrin, the very huge high court that had condemned Jesus. Luke adds another layer, Kalinim, a good and righteous man who had not consented to the council's decision. And John's Gospel gives us a crucial piece of the puzzle. Joseph was a secret disciple for fear of the Jews. Let's pause on that for a second. Imagine the position Joseph was in. He was a man of wealth, status, and power. He sat on the most influential council in Judea, publicly aligning himself with an outcast preacher from Galilee like Jesus could have cost him everything. His reputation, his wealth, his position, maybe even his life. So, he followed Jesus from the shadows. He listened to his teachings, believed in his message, but kept his faith hidden. Can you relate to that? Sometimes, standing up for what you believe in is terrifying, especially when you have a lot to lose. But then, everything changed. The crucifixion happened. This was the moment of truth for Joseph. As Jesus hung on the cross, the world of his followers was falling apart. The disciples had scattered. Peter had denied him. It seemed like all hope was lost. And it's right here, in this moment of utter despair and danger, that Joseph of Arimathea steps out of the shadows and into the spotlight of history. Think about the courage this took. The Roman authorities and the Jewish leaders had just executed Jesus as a criminal, a threat to the established order. Approaching Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, to ask for the body of a crucified man was an incredibly bold and risky move. Knowing this, Joseph was publicly identifying himself with a condemned criminal. His secret was out. He was essentially saying, "I am with him." He was risking the wrath of both the Romans and his fellow members of the Sanhedrin. Why did he do it? The Gospels tell us he wanted to give Jesus a proper burial. According to Jewish law, it was a sacred duty to bury the dead. But the bodies of executed criminals were often left on their crosses or thrown into a common grave. Joseph couldn't let that happen to his master. He went to Pilate and made his request. Pilate was surprised that Jesus was already dead, and after confirming it with a centurion, he granted Joseph's request. Now, Joseph wasn't alone in this. John's Gospel tells us that another secret disciple, Nicodemus, came to help him. You might remember Nicodemus as the Pharisee who came to Jesus by night to ask him questions. He brought with him a massive amount of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds worth. This was an incredibly expensive mixture of spices used for anointing a body for burial, an amount fit for a king. Together, these two men, who had once hidden their faith and fear, now openly and honorably cared for the body of Jesus. They took him down from the cross, wrapped him in clean linen cloths with the spices, and prepared him for burial according to Jewish customs. This wasn't a rushed or simple act. It was a deliberate, respectful, and loving farewell. And where did they bury him? This is another significant part of the story. Matthew's Gospel says that Joseph laid Jesus in his own new tomb, which he had cut out of the rock. This wasn't just any grave. It was a new, unused tomb belonging to a wealthy man. In a way, this fulfilled a prophecy from the book of Isaiah, which says the suffering servant would be with a rich man in his death. Joseph, using his wealth and status, provided a tomb that no one had ever been laid in before. He then rolled a large stone across the entrance of the tomb and left. And with that, Joseph of Arimathea's role in the biblical narrative is complete. He appears, performs this crucial act of bravery and devotion, and then disappears from the story. We don't hear about him on Easter morning. We don't know what happened to him after the resurrection. The Bible is silent about the rest of his life. But his story doesn't end there, at least not in tradition and legend. Because he's such a mysterious figure, many stories grew up around him over the centuries. The most famous of these legends connects him to Britain. One popular story claims that Joseph traveled to Glastonbury, England, after the resurrection. Some versions say he brought with him the Holy Grail, the cup used by Jesus at the Last Supper, and which Joseph supposedly used to catch his blood at the crucifixion. According to this legend, when Joseph arrived in Glastonbury, he planted his staff in the ground, and it miraculously blossomed into a thorn tree, known as the Glastonbury thorn, which flowers every Christmas. This legend became incredibly popular in medieval England, and was even tied into the stories of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, with their quest for the Holy Grail. While there's no historical or biblical evidence to support these tales, they show how much this one-time character captured the imagination of later generations. They saw in him a symbol of enduring faith and a direct link to the events of the Passion. So, what can we take away from the story of Joseph of Arimathea? I think his journey is incredibly powerful. He shows us that it's never too late to be brave. For a long time, he was a disciple in secret, paralyzed by fear. But when the moment counted most, when everyone else had fled, his steephead, he risked everything to do the right thing, to show love and respect to Jesus when it was most dangerous to do so. His story is a testament to the transformative power of faith. It shows that courage isn't about the absence of fear, but about acting in spite of it. Joseph's act of kindness ensured that the story of Jesus didn't end with a dishonorable death. By providing a tomb, he set the stage for the greatest event in history, the resurrection. Without a tomb to be empty, the story would be very different. Joseph of Arimathea is a reminder that sometimes the most significant acts are done by the most unexpected people. He was a rich man, a powerful man, a member of the ruling elite. But in the end, his true legacy wasn't his wealth or his status. It was his one defining act of courage and faith. He used his privilege and resources not for his own gain, but to serve and honor the one he believed in, even at great personal risk. So the next time you read the Easter story, pay close attention to this quiet, courageous figure. He may have only had a brief moment in the biblical spotlight, but his actions echoed through eternity, reminding us all that true faith is often revealed not in our words, but in our deeds, especially when the stakes are highest. What do you think about Joseph of Arimathea? Does his story of moving from fear to courage resonate with you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading what you have to say. And if you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the fascinating figures of history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.